Hey legends, welcome back to the Mase and Cox Show. Now plenty happening on this sports podcast. We got the Demons in Port Adelaide survive a late comeback. Brodie Mihocek, goal of the year. Just goal of the year. And also, who's going to be my top 5 people I'd choose for the Tassie team coming in 2028? We're covering it all in this podcast, so sit down, listen in, let's get into it. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Braden.
Mase, it's been a big week, and not just because you have returned to the field. We have had a big week off the field. We have hit 30,000 people following us on our TikTok and 10,000 on our Instagram. So we're going off. I don't know what we should do. Something. It feels like we should do something.
We should give some shit away.
We should give some shit away
because we got some OGs in here
yeah.
listening right now. Thank you, everyone, so much for being part of the program. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to do a little giveaway. You see us wearing the merch. We're going to do our first ever merch giveaway. So make sure you follow on all the socials, everything else, and have a look out for whenever we put things up.
And we have had a lot of requests in the DMs, which is good. Sliding into the DMs, not used to it. So there are people in our DMs, and it's coming. We're going to get the merch out. We're going to get the hoodies. We're going to get the shirts. We've got a few hats that we're trying, but it's coming. So
it's a really cool collab we're going to do too.
Yeah,
keep your eyes out.
It's great. I'm pumped for it, but we got to get into it. Clanger of the week. Let's stuff that up. That's even funnier.
It's first clanger.
I'm not going to fix that either. I want to give a shout out to Big Ant Studios. I didn't want to name them. I started the sentence and I couldn't stop. They're the creator of the AFL 23 video game. Wow. And to say that the rollout of this has been shambolic would be a massive understatement. Now, I'll walk you through a little bit of like the issues I guess they've had over time. So they delayed the release of the game because the Xbox game just didn't arrive in Australia. So that's not great. So they're like, we want everyone to play it at the same time. So we'll delay a month. They delay a month. Xbox games still aren't here. They're like, whatever, let's release everything.
Is everything online nowadays, Brandon?
So they get it out there and the thing is broken. So there's instances where you can't pick up the ball. There's instances where you don't get tackled by an opposition so you can just run endlessly, which would be great in real life.
I saw that from one goal square to the other, just trotted on through the field. No one touched him.
AFL put out a statement, which is
that's never good.
Not what you want when you're the game developer going, hey guys, they know that it's cooked. They're working on fixing it. So I think that would be sweating it up big time. Not what you want. And, I hope they turn it around. But, yeah, my clanger of the week, AFL 23.
Shambles. Absolute shambles. Let's just hope there's an update coming soon for that thing.
Yeah, gonna have to lift your game. But what is your clanger of the week, Mase?
Now, we've all been told the big news from last week, Tasmania's got an AFL team. There's 19 coming. 19 teams coming to the AFL. Now, my clanger is the fact that everyone wants to call the Tasmanian team the Tassie Devils, but Warner Brothers has the copyright claim to that name. Therefore, they're going to have to either pay a handsome fee for that, or they just won't be able to call them that. And that is the go-to name. There is not a better name for the Tasmanian team. Maybe the Tassie Tigers, but Richmond already has that, so it's not going to happen. So, Tasmanian Devils might not be able to call them that because Warner Brothers has a copyright and legally not allowed.
It's a real awkward one when everyone wants it and expects it. And then, I wonder how much they'll have to shell out for it. But
millions.
It's weird that it's like, that's our thing. Like you can't just, how do you copyright in that? Like copyright kangaroo or emu or like, it's our thing. It's the name of the animal. I don't get it. But, maybe we call them the Tasmanian Warner Brothers and go the big WB logo inside Tasmania on the chest or something. There's not that many. There's no options down there. Like, what do you it's not really known.
The Mountaineers.
Yeah,
the Mountaineers, Cradle Mountaineers.
It's not known for a lot of things.
It's a beautiful place. The nature's beautiful. We love Tasmania. Big fan. And hey, there's going to be a 20th team coming too. Gil said that. So Northern Territory, look out.
There is one that I saw, the Swift parrot, which is apparently the fastest parrot in the world, lives down there. Critically endangered, like most things down in Tasmania.
When Mom asks you what you learned today, the Swift parrot is the fastest bird in the world.
Yeah.
And lives in Tasmania.
Fastest parrot.
Parrot, sorry. Apologies.
Now, I don't know how many breeds of parrots there are, but let's not get into it because
Let's
it's a
move on.
sports podcast, Mase. Now, I want to know this. If you were starting the team, now I don't know why the AFL would get you to do anything after how much shit you talk about them, but they say Mason Cox, Mr. America, come down and teach us how to build a club from scratch down in Tassie.
Oh, jeez.
It all makes sense, doesn't it? Who are the top 5 players that you'd take down there to start this club off?
Now, I had to think about this. Now, the coach you got to start with, right? Jack Rowell loves Tasmania. The man is the image of this whole movement that's happening right now, right? Got to be the coach.
And he's a well-respected coach, right?
I don't know. I've seen him in a coach's box a few times, so I'm assuming he has some experience, right? Jack Rowell, coach. Ruckman, got to go Ruck first. Ned Reeves. Now, you got to remember, this is a team that's coming out in 2028. So I'm not picking the best of the best today. I'm picking the best of the best in 2028 that I think will be to start a new team.
So a bit of crystal ball stuff.
Yeah, a bit of crystal ball here. So Ned Reeves, I'm going to go Ruck. Tall, reliable timber. Big, goofy, lanky fella. We love that. We love that. Matt Rowell.
Yeah.
You got to have him. He's going to be your guy that you just go to, always makes the right decision. On and off the field, clean cut, straight down the line. Matt Rowell.
I like it.
Andrew Brayshaw, similar. Just a good football player.
They're your 2 leaders.
2 leaders. Leading in the middle, cold-faced players, get in and under. That's what you want to build your team around, right?
And they'll be that like mid to late 20s, hitting their prime.
That's it.
Good picks.
Okay, so we got Ford. You have to have a ticket seller.
Yeah.
Got to get people down to a new stadium. Got to pay that thing off. Isaac Rankin.
Yeah, I like that.
He's going to be your ticket seller. That man, he got in a few scuffles last week, and he just does some incredible stuff on the field.
Yeah.
He's going to be your man that is showtime. Your showtime, man.
I like that.
Now, lastly, we've got to go to the back line. Now, back line people usually a bit older, bit more experienced, right? So 2028 rolls around, probably not going to be around. So I got to pick a young gun in the back line, Sam DeConing. That man, premiership player. He's got a bit of experience winning a premiership at a young age. He's in a very experienced Geelong team. He's getting through the ranks right now. He's getting a lot of useful information that he'll be able to use later in his career to hopefully be a leader. So he's going to go my back line. That is my top 5 players. If I had to start a team in Tasmania, and God knows why the AFL would ever ask that. No chance in the world. But I don't know. Maybe I'll be an international ambassador, so this kind of makes sense.
I think DeConing's probably your best pick because it's hard to find a young key defender.
It's true.
And yeah, normally that's where your leadership comes from. You need a leader down back, barking at everyone, yelling, and you'll get a lot of leadership coming out of Geelong. All the elderly men rocking around down there. So that's a good pick. Good pick.
I want to move on to the next thing. We've got shout out of the week, and this is a very rare occurrence, I must say, Braden. I'm going to shout out the AFL. This hurts me to say.
I'm glad you come around.
Oh, finally, the people that pay my bills and pay the paycheck, I'm going to give a shout out to. They have made a decision to give lifetime bans for fans that racially vilify players. This is a long time coming.
I'm stoked on this. Like, it's so good. Get them out. Piss them off. If you don't want to join in with everyone, you don't have to be there. And I reckon you could add to this list. We're definitely going to touch more on it. But I reckon I've seen more punch-ons in the stands over the weekend. Add them to the list. Ban them. If they're going to come here and cause shit, everyone's trying to get on the same page. It's all a community feel. You get there, you just want to support players, watch them play some footy. It's not that serious. Get there, support the boys. If you win, lose, cop it on the chin if you lose. You don't have to be racially vilifying people. Sit at home.
And the thing that annoys me too is not only this and the whole matter of fact of them doing that is ridiculous beyond belief, but the fact that they know that there are families around them that go to the football to have a family experience and a good time. And then you're going to ruin it by shit that you can control. Everyone wants to go to the footy to have a good time. Everyone wants to be surrounded by good people. No one wants to see a fight next to a 3-year-old kid they brought to the football. That's ridiculous. Or having to hear disgusting language next to, your child that's 10 years old who's still learning what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. These things are just ridiculous to have in the AFL game in the stands. And if it means having to, give lifetime bans to these people, maybe you'll learn, teach them a lesson. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Now that you can, there's cameras everywhere. They're watching everyone's moves. You can dob in blokes saying this stuff in the stands. Yeah, I'm all for it. And I was really glad to see it because I didn't know that it was coming. But it was, I was stoked when I saw it coming. I think they banned 9 people already and they're on the hunt for a few more. So I hope they get them.
You can clip this up, Braden. I'm proud of the AFL.
There you go.
There you go. That'll clip up real well for the future.
Let's jump into the football. Carlton Brisbane kicked off the round, and there's
Carlton fans were hyped. They're like, "This is our chance. This is our chance."
Because each week is a bit of a chance for Carlton to kind of prove themselves.
They're really just, everyone I feel like every week is always just on Carlton to say, "Oh no, this is the game. This is the game. They need to prove themselves."
And coming off a 100-point win against West Coast in Perth, half the people were writing it off, saying, "Yeah, well, it was just West Coast," and then the other optimistic few were saying, we're here, but. Nah, it didn't turn out that way. Carlton kind of stunk it up again. Much the same issues, going forward, real clunky, going forward slow. You got two Coleman medalists up there. I think everyone would like to see some faster ball movement and see it get in there. Charlie's still doing Charlie things, which is great.
It was turnovers, I think, that cost Carlton this game. And they have to find a way to get into the forward line because they've got two guns in the forward line. It doesn't matter how, you just need to get the ball to them. And I don't know, maybe Charlie has to start coming up more like Buddy Franklin does and taking marks, up the ground just to be able to get it, to the next third of the ground, just to be able to get it inside 50. I'm not sure, but Carlton is having issues right now trying to get the ball into the two big forwards.
Yeah, the super basic skill errors didn't help them at all. Coming off halfback, every time they were trying to pick off the risky kick on the 45, just dropping short, dropping the mark. Yeah, it must be extremely frustrating for Carlton fans to watch that week in, week out when you don't know what you're going to get. But what you do know what you're going to get from Josh Dunkley. He's finally gone up there. He's taken over. He's becoming more consistent, but he did something on the weekend that only 7 other people have done before him, and he got the elusive quad double, Mase.
What's the quad double?
Well, it's when you get double numbers in kicks,
it's like a triple
handballs, marks, and tackles. So he had 22 kicks, 11 handballs, 11 marks, 13 tackles.
13 tackles. Oh, have a day, Josh.
I thought 13 tackles are good, but 11 marks, he's not 2 meters like yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty damn good effort. Good. Now, the other 7 players you might ask, Scott Thompson, Joel Selwood, Brett Stanton, Ben McGlynn, Tom Rockcliffe, Corey Enright, and Carl Amon. A real ragtag bunch of misfits, that one.
Rockcliffe, shout out.
That was a whole bunch of, you wouldn't see them sitting at a bar together. but it's awesome for Dunks. Dunks moving up there. Probably took him a couple of weeks to get, it's hard, I imagine, to join a new team and just fit in straight away. And we've seen that across the league this year that, some people adapt really well. Other people take a few weeks to get into it. But it's good to see Dunks up there doing numbers.
He was not the only one that played pretty well. Now, Charlie Cameron kicks 4. Now, we just expect this nowadays. If he kicks, and he's like Jezza Cameron, if he kicks under 4, bad day.
He's on fire. If there was a player that got goal side of you out of the league, I think he's the last guy that you want to have.
Would be shitting myself. And there's also a moment where Joe Danaher kicked one from 70 meters, turns on the left, wheels out, and says, this is our percentage play. Me going for goal from here.
See, and then I think there was a moment from Joe Danaher where he wheeled around and missed one from 70. And the reaction...
that doesn't make it to the highlight tape, though.
Won't be as positive. I think Charlie Cameron arms out in the square going, what about me?
I could have got 5. Mason could be singing, take me out, Charlie.
But we did have one incident out of the game. Nick Newman elbowed Lockie Neal. Got a week for that. Not something that you want to see. At the same time, not something that's,
you would have known serious. Right away after he did it. I'm sitting down next week. I'm out.
At the moment, it's hard to know what's reportable, what's going to get weeks, what's doing what. Like the tackles.
Here's your answer. Hitting someone in the face, Braden, is going to get you a week.
Yeah, so I think ban the obvious ones, which is what they've done here, giving him 1 match. We'll jump across to the Richmond West Coast game and...
Thriller.
Geez, people... looked at this on paper and went, Richmond will bounce back, get a bit of momentum and kind of take off for the rest of the year. But West Coast were giving them a scare up until halftime.
It was panic stations.
Yeah, it was, Oscar Allen, just every time I looked up at the TV, he had the ball.
He's the only positive thing coming out of that place right now. There's that many injuries. It's like frustration 101, I'm sure. But Oscar Allen he's now got a lot more opportunity that Kennedy's gone. and he's making the most of it.
Yeah, which is really cool because normally they were throwing him around forward and back and you don't get that consistency. So it's good seeing him staying up forward and kicking snags. Now, you talked about injuries. Jai Cully, unfortunately, has done his ACL, which it's just shattering for the young kid. He came in off the back of all these other injuries and was building into it and started playing some really good football. But yeah, unfortunately down with an ACL, so he'll miss a year.
Another one on the sidelines for West Coast. Dude, seriously, I'll be amazed by mid-season if they have a full team.
Yeah, the mid-season draft, they're really just going to have to top up with blokes.
They'll be taking as many as they can. I don't know how many you can draft in mid-season draft, but they might draft 20 players.
Yeah, that's a good point. They might need to get an exemption and draft some more, go down to the waffle and just pick half the side. Now, that wasn't the only incident that came out of it. Kane Cornes and Dimmer. They've been having a bit of a back and forth,
hey?
Which is interesting. So essentially, Kane Cornes has said that Tim Taranto not in the top 150 players. Now, I think I've heard this one before. Like, I don't know if Kane's gone back on some old gear. He might be running out on some topics here to cause some attention. But he reckons Timmy Taranto not in the top 150 players. Now, just thinking off the top of my head, that's a bit of a stretch to make that claim.
Yeah, Tim Taranto, everyone that knows AFL knows who he is, and there's a reason because he's a damn good player. And to say he's not in the top 150, he hasn't had probably the greatest start to the year, but it doesn't mean he's a terrible player. I think if you look at players and look out throughout their career, he would definitely be in the top 150 playing right now. And yeah, he said he doesn't influence games, which was interesting. And then Damien Hardwick, he said back to Kane Cornes because he was asked about it in his presser. He said, quote unquote, he doesn't generally believe that comment, but what he does is he says it to get clicks. That's how the media works. Surprise. So essentially, he's saying that Kane Cornes is here just throwing stuff out there to get clicks and clickbait. And Kane Cornes is not too happy about that, which understandably, it's kind of a bit taking a shot at his media career. But, is this really surprising?
It's on brand though, right? So
very on brand.
You do this, it gets the attention from the coach.
Exactly.
The coach makes the comment. You say that you're offended by the comment to keep the whole situation rolling.
Yep.
Keep fueling that fire. Everyone keeps an eye on Tim Taranto. The pressure's on him. And then, if Timmy Taranto comes out and just starts flooring it for the next second half of the season, then all you have to do is go, yeah, well, he proved me wrong.
Yeah. One thing people don't realize, Kane Cornes is pretty smart in the way he goes about things.
100%.
Yes, you might not agree with what he says. Don't get me wrong. I understand. I've disagreed with some of the things he said throughout his career also, but he's smart in the way he plays the media. And I don't think people respect it or understand it, and that actually works in his favor even more because of that. But he is a man that actually knows what he's doing without people realizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's really good at his job, and it's hard. But once you do look at it in a sense that he's the bad guy that the media needs, you have all these, positive ex-players that can't really talk that much shit post-career that need a Kane Cornes in there to create this negative, talking point.
You need the opposition. You can't have everyone saying positive things. You need the opposition to say that, so then you have a controversy between two people where they can talk more. And that's what Kane does, and he's good at it.
But it is hard to put, your feelings aside. If he came out and just said, well, I'm sure he has, Mason Cox sucks, he shouldn't be playing footy anymore or whatever, it's hard to then just go he's doing it for clicks. I'm not going to take any notice of it. Players take notice of stuff.
I don't really read too much media, bar the stuff we have to do for this podcast.
I have a feeling if there was a journalist that has written a scathing article about you, you'd remember it.
The only person I do know, there's one person I refuse to interview with in all of the media, and I won't say his name.
See, there's always someone. A player always has someone.
And it's actually not because of anything he wrote. It's because of something he said that was supposed to be behind closed doors conversation. And he said it to public whenever it was a AB conversation.
I think
it was almost illegal, the fact that he came out with it.
And knowing this from my time in footy, it's every player would have a journalist that has burnt them and burnt them at the wrong time, that they then either don't talk to that person ever again, or they don't talk to the media ever again. Like they get so burnt, especially the young kids coming through. They'll get burnt and then just be like, nah, I'm not going to go do that presser. Nah, I don't want that media opportunity. They'll just start turning down everything because it's easier to not say anything than to get burnt by the media, which then has a roll-on effect for, your position in the side.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is interesting, but I digress. We'll jump into the Geelong Adelaide game and
danger.
Yeah, Adelaide have been so good. Like
Adelaide's flying under the radar somehow.
Going down to versus Geelong in Geelong, like that's
the
no easy task.
The fortress of GMHBA Stadium, very hard to get a win there. Luckily, we never play them there.
Because you have too many fans.
That's it. Unfortunately, though, there was something big that came out of it. Now, Dangerfield went out, got subbed for a hamstring awareness, as he said. Bit confusing because it kind of was like one of those things. It's like, well, did you do the hamstring or was it just awareness? I'm not really sure. And it was maybe a bit of a tactical sub just to make sure that if it was a hamstring, it didn't get worse. But he did come off. So prayers up to Danger. Hopefully he's out there still. But also another big one, Jesse Cameron, unfortunately, did not kick his bag. Only kicked 3. How dare you, Jess? He actually kicked the most on anyone else in the game, but I expect 10 every single week. We need you to kick 100 this year. So keep on that trajectory. Everyone just kick it to the Jess. He actually kicked one opposite foot from the pocket. I don't know what he can't do anymore. Everything I see this man do, I'm like, surely you can't top that. Next week, I got you, bro.
It's real tragic that he's seen the fall off that he has. It's probably been 2 weeks now where he's only kicked 3. So prayers up for Danger, but prayers up for Jezza. Hopefully he comes good in the coming weeks. I was going to say one of his former teammates, and I'm not sure if there was a crossover, but Gary Ablett.
Gaz, yes, the Gaza.
He was back at it at local footy, and there's a highlight up. You can see it via the AFL Twitter. They put it up. Which is where we saw it. He gets it off the ruck contest.
Beautiful hit out.
And kicks a left foot droppy from the deep in the pocket, sails through, crowd goes nuts.
Freak. He's just an absolute freak. Still got it. He's like 39. Dude, still got it.
Still doing Gary Ablett things. It's awesome to see.
Next thing, it's just Garrett Gaz. Shout out to Gaz. We love Gaz.
We love all Garys.
We all. Gary! We'll move on to the next one. Gold Coast versus Melbourne. Can I ask you this? I saw this video, and I want to ask if this is true. Matt Rowell eats grass pre-game?
Yeah, I saw this, and I don't know. I was kind of dumbfounded by
what in the world?
What he was doing.
Surely there's like some kind of like pesticide or something maybe on there too. You probably shouldn't be eating the grass.
I would suggest.
I'm worried for his health more than anything.
I'd suggest don't eat grass full stop.
Yep.
Probably not something that humans would be digesting. But yeah, there's essentially like a video of him in like a crouching position, feeling the grass, just feeling the earth between his fingers, just getting a sense of
grounding.
Yeah, getting a grounding and just being one with the stadium, so much so that he picks grass and he eats it. I don't know why.
I've never seen it. I mean, I understand like picking the grass up, rub between your hands, whatever it is, just get a bit of feel like the field. But to stick it in your mouth, have a chew, I don't know. Is it some kind of fancy grass? Is it a different kind of Bermuda grass? It just tastes delicious. I'm interested now. Like I'm gonna have to go up to Gold Coast and have a taste.
He's a big, juicy, grass-fed Matthew cow.
Grass-fed.
But yeah, maybe you should start trying it. He's had a pretty good year, so
it's true.
Add it to the routine. Big chunk of grass before you start off.
That wasn't the only weird thing that came out of this game, though. There was one point Joel took a mark at forward 50. He just waved off. Just get out of my way. I'm here to kick a goal. Everyone else, fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. He just waves them off, and he actually kicks the goal, thank God, because it would have been real awkward if he didn't. But it was just wild that there's a scuffle kind of thing. He's just gone, nah, out of here. Get out of here. Don't care. Loved it.
That was good to see. He copped a bit of a shove late in the game by Max Gawn.
That was no call. Interesting. Can't comment.
It was a no call. Yeah, but they ended up getting a shot afterwards. But yeah, I definitely like Charlie to be taking the set shots, being the big key forward that he is. But unlucky not to get one there.
Well, they had the chance, though. McPherson had a chance to tie at the end of the game and scored it behind with 16 seconds left. And that's just depressing because it's like, oh, you get that moment. You're like, oh, this is one of those momentous career moments. I could actually win the game for my team. And yeah, shank it for a behind. Oh, it's real just depressing.
Now, Stewie Jew after the game as well was, he didn't want to praise a loss, but at the same time, he thought it was a great hard-fought game. And he was pretty proud of his boys, but at the same time, it would have been really frustrating sitting there, and giving away a couple of free kicks late that essentially cost them the game. After all that hard work and all that hard effort, they gave away a little bump on the wing during the kick-in. Yeah. So it's a free kick to Max Gawn at the top of the square, kicks the goal, they end up losing by a goal. It's like something just as small as that you're sitting there and you're like, I can't coach that out of them.
It's a thing that you can actually change. You can influence that. And that's, I think, a positive Gold Coast will take out of this is it's like their mistakes that are fixable were the reasons they lost that game. So next week, hopefully you can, address those issues, be able to say we're going to be able to handle pressure and handle that situation better, and then be able to hopefully not give up 2 or 3 goals that might be because of that and be able to win a game.
I think the frustrating thing is, though, that it's not the first time. There's been multiple occasions where it's like, oh, they're right in it, a couple of free kicks against or a couple of basic skill errors or whatever, cost them the game. And it's almost in that same pattern of the honourable loss where you don't want, honourable loss is okay for a couple. And then if you keep having them, they're just losses.
They're just losses.
Which isn't great. Now, your boy, Jacob Van Rooyen, he's in a bit of hot water for his, I'd call it a hit on Charlie Ballard, but essentially he's going back with the flight and attempts to spoil the ball, which is all well and good, but he doesn't have his eye on the ball. He's trying to predict when it's kind of going to drop into Charlie Ballard's hands. Now, he runs clean through Ballard and he's looking at a suspension. Now, it's a real hard one because it kind of sits in this grey area with the bump. If you elect to bump and hit the head, you get suspended. Are you looking at the action or are you looking at the result? Now, some media commentators are coming out saying you got to look at the result. Did he get concussed? Was how bad was Ballard injured? All of that stuff, or do you look at the action? It's a real hard one.
Let's say this. Jonathan Brown came out and said, would be one of the worst decisions in tribunal history. That's a statement. And I can't agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's okay, look, I think the action and everything else, right? He wasn't going for the ball. If he was turned his head and was looking back to where the ball was coming in, it might just be, I think I'd probably have a different decision on this. But the fact that he came back, went over the top, clipped him upside the head, the way the MRL works, right? So it was considered striking, careless contact, high impact, high contact. That's 2 matches. Now, no chance of an early plea. So it's going to be very interesting what Melbourne does with this. And I think not only from Melbourne's standpoint, but the AFL standpoint, because we've had a few of these where, even over the weekend, I think Frost went back with a flight with a Fremantle player, and it was very similar to this, where he goes back to try to punch it, and he's going full pace at someone else, and that person's kind of stagnant, and he goes over the top and he clips him. But it's kind of those things. It's okay, well, if you're going for the ball and you clip him after and you punch the ball, is that okay? I don't know where that kind of sits, if you do hit him high. I kind of almost think it's if you punch someone in the back of the head where you're trying to go spoil, it's almost kind of similar to that.
Yeah, I see it as if you apply the same rules as the bump to this contest, it doesn't look good for Van Rooyen. Because if you say you can elect to bump and you can still bump. Bump's not gone from our game. You can elect to bump, and if it's a clean bump, play on. If you elect to bump, you hit the head, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
The same with this. You can go back with the flight, not looking at the ball and throw out an arm to spoil. If you hit the ball, all good.
Josh Daicos did it recently.
If you hit them in the head and they're injured, well, you elected to. It's a careless action. You don't know where the ball is. It just seems like a careless action that he's just going back as a cannonball, and it's if I hit the ball, I hit the ball.
Yeah.
Well, there kind of needs to be a repercussion if you don't hit the ball and you injure the opposition player, because it opens it up to that action moving forward, that you can just run back blind and just take out a bloke. And if you run the rule out of do I hit the ball or I don't? Well, there's no repercussion if I don't. And it's play on if I do. So
if you don't hit the ball, it's a free kick. And it's okay, cool, whatever. Same result.
It feels so counterintuitive because it's like it would almost be an applauded effort try your hardest to get back there, to dive in, to try and just get every inch. But the fact is that he wasn't looking at the ball at like any stage. So
if he turns back, looks at the ball, totally different decision, I think.
Which is what I think Frost did.
Doesn't? Yeah, Frost did. That was a big difference. And I think that's the reason it was play on and nothing was really determined out of that one. But this one with Van Ruin, the fact they didn't look back at the ball, I think is going to cause him real issues whenever it comes to the MRO, because if you don't come back and look for the ball, you clip someone high, it's the same as tackling someone high almost, I feel like. And that's just going to be the situation. Like if you go back and you put your arm up, you just don't hit the player and you slap the ball out of the air, that's fine. But as soon as I think you start making that high contact with someone else, that's whenever you're going to be in strife. And the fact that you structured off too, like it just added insult to injury, and it just made it a lot worse than probably originally looked. I didn't think it was like looked that bad at first, and then when you see the slow like replay, you're like, oh snap, okay, he actually did clip him pretty high.
And yeah, I feel like moving forward, especially with CTE, we're just going to have a lot of these like landmark cases that are like, all right, we've never been in this position before. Let's think our way through this. And unfortunately, out of that, these players are just going to start copping suspensions that they didn't even comprehend going into it. Like he would have just thought, I got to go here because my coach is going to be calling me like soft and dragging me if I don't. Players are going to not trust me on my own team if I don't go and try to do everything I can to defend. Like all this stuff's going through his head. He's not thinking, oh, if I hit him high and he gets injured, there might be a landmark case that like sets a precedent for all like blind spoils moving forward. Yeah. Like it's not something that you comprehend in that small instance of time, but you know, they can't let him go and then say, okay, but from now on, no.
They're going to make a statement.
Yeah,
Fortunately, he might be the face of that statement.
Which is tough.
All right, we'll move on to GWS versus Bulldogs. We've got a prayers up.
We got a prayers up. And Ads Trelaw, who we love on the podcast, has unfortunately done another hamstring. He's had a bit of a history. When you move that quick, like sometimes your hamstrings can't keep up.
His old double hamstring injury from back in the day. That was one of the wildest things I've ever seen.
That still haunts me in my brain. I can see it. But yeah, unfortunately, it did a hamstring. So I imagine he'll spend some time on the sidelines. But the game in all was pretty good. GWS still doing GWS stuff, like fighting it out to the end. Like
made a push in the fourth.
Yeah, so they really tried to fight their way back into it. But Bulldogs have really come good in the last few weeks, which like they started really slow and it was really concerning coming out of the blocks. But yeah, starting to put it together. Now the game was in Canberra.
Yeah.
Now I can't imagine you would have played many Canberra games.
I think I've played one in my career, preseason game, maybe GWS. It was about like 5 years ago, pre-COVID.
Which is, and
great deck. Not many people there.
You got there in preseason, it wouldn't have been as cold. I think it was like 8 degrees or less, which like during the game.
That's long sleeve weather for even me.
Yeah, I would be wearing a jumper, like a hoodie.
Big puffer, the big puffer.
Yeah, the Jack Ginnivan puffer special.
That he was on over the weekend.
So yeah, it just made me think there would have been some obscure grounds that you would have played on in your time. Luckily, for you, Collingwood doesn't seem to have to play on many small grounds, but you haven't always been in the senior side, mate. So tell us some of these. You would have done Ballarat.
So Ballarat's probably one of the weirdest places I ever played. My first game of like AFL, VFL, whatever it is, ever was in Ballarat. It was like 0 degrees. It was hailing at one point, sleeting, snowing, sunny, raining, windy, all in one game. It was so cold that we would go to the sidelines and where we got interchanged, and there was like 4 buckets of just steaming, boiling water, and you just dunk your hands in there to try to gain some kind of feeling back into your like limbs before you'd run back out on the field. I'll never forget it. And there was we had a player kick like a 80-meter goal, and I just literally skid for about 40 meters. The wind took it. I think he just tried to like clearance from a from a stoppage, and the thing just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I'll never forget it. It was one of the most insane things. We talk about Willie, so Williamstown, obviously another place windy as hell because it's right on the edge of the ocean.
Yeah,
you could kick a ball that way and it would end up backing somehow going behind you.
Yeah,
it was that place is insane.
That was one that I never had to work at, but some of the boys told me that there's no like media box. There's no box.
Nah.
So you just have to sit on a park bench and be typing up your stories and stuff. That would
Windy's like, I just don't know who made the idea to put a football ground right there.
It looks nice.
It looks beautiful. Conceptually, terrible. Like wind just howling from one side to the other. And they're really good down there because they actually know how to play the ground that's their home ground.
Yeah, I can't think of outside of that. Not that many more obscure grounds, is there?
I think I was up in Queensland once, and we're coming back from Fraser Island, and I was with my brothers. And I'll never forget. And we didn't see many AFL fields up there, and I remember driving down, and my brothers were in the car, and we just go, "Oh wow, there's like an AFL field down there," and there's kids that were having like a training session. They're like 12 years old, whoever it might be. So my brothers and I were just like, "Hey, let's go pop down, have a kick with them." You know, they would never expect Mason Cox to roll up in the middle of Queensland just to have a kick at a footy ground, right? So we rock up there. Kids lose their mind. Like, couldn't believe it. They're like, an AFL player is up here and just randomly on like a Thursday night, just hanging out, having a kick with us.
At least they knew who you were. Imagine if you rolled in and they were like, leave us alone. Weirdo.
You wanky weird prick. But no, they were so nice, so genuine, so lovely. And yeah, it was such like a random thing. But yeah, the brothers and I had a little kick down there. So that's one of the more obscure football grounds I've had to kick at.
That's a cool one.
But a cool one. Yeah, it was cool because it was just like so random for the kids and they would have never expected it, unplanned. And they just loved it, just ate it up.
You've never have to play like up in the NT or anything, have you?
No, I really want to though.
Yeah,
I want to play Tiwi Islands.
Yeah,
that'd be sick.
There would be some cool ones. Well, Tassie will probably be the weirdest one when you're down there. At how old will you be? 36 or something?
84, and Pendles will be still playing at 102.
He'll still be there for sure. Let's jump into the Freo Hawthorn game now. Talk about blockbusters, Mase. Now Freo had the Starlight Foundation jersey on. Guernsey, you wrote down jersey. Tricked me. Guernsey here in Australia, Mase.
Hey.
But yeah, nice touch.
Yeah, I think the person that probably started this was Chris Mayne. Shout out to Chris Mayne. Absolute legend there. Played a lot of games for Fremantle before he came to Collingwood for a bit. And he was massive in the Starlight Foundation. And it was cool for them. I just love whenever there's different jumpers. Don't get me wrong. I like the traditionalist, jumper. And I know Collingwood fans are crazy about that. But I think it's cool whenever you see, a company or an entity that is a club be able to get around something else and make, a financial impact to Starlight Foundation by selling these jumpers and doing something different. Like it's cool to me to see the influence that a club can have in the community by just changing the look for 1 week.
Yeah, which is what I don't understand about the whole people that are like, oh, why do we have to have a round for everything? Well, it's because AFL can do some pretty positive stuff in the community at no cost to anyone. So yeah, I love seeing it.
There's Indigenous round jumpers going around. Shout out to Loey, a good friend of mine, did Melbourne's jumper. Really cool jumper. I'm excited for ours. I don't think we've launched it yet, but those are one of my favorites. That's my favorite jumper from the round, the Indigenous jumper round. It's so cool.
Now, out of the game, Luke Jackson, 2 goals, 24 touches. Just wanted to give him a quick shout out because early on in the year, you take this kid, you transport him halfway around the world, you plonk him in a new club, and he's got to figure out what the hell to do, what's going on at that club. And he had a couple of quiet games to start the year, and they were drilling him.
Oh.
And now he's been popping up, kicking goals, having touches. He's had influence on a fair few games now, and it's gone a bit quiet. Yeah. No one praises him.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, so I just wanted to give him a bit of praise. He's been doing awesome.
2 goals, 24 touches. Shout out, Lukey boy.
And another shout out, young kid coming up off the bench as the sub, Natty Fifth, coming off the bench.
Nat Fife, one of the legends of Fremantle, one of the best players to ever play, mate. Get around him.
Imagine if you're having a bad game and you're like, God, they're going to sub me. You look over and the sub is Nat Fife. You're like, fucking hell.
I get subbed in the first 30 seconds of this game.
Like you'd be sweating. If I was the coach down on the bench, every time a player did something stupid, I'd look at him and just point to Nat Fife. So don't make me pull the trigger, mate. We got Nat 5 right, Brownlow medalist. I'll pull ya. But yeah, it was good to see him come on and kick a ripping goal from the pocket.
Oh, just straight through the contest. Says, boys, let me show you how it's done.
Now, Port Adelaide, Essendon. Good game.
Yep.
Not a lot of talking points out of it. It was just a really solid game of footy. Both teams are thereabouts.
Yep.
Like Port's starting to look really, really solid, which we love it for Kenny. And Essendon, probably ahead of where most people anticipated them to be, but falling on the wrong side of a couple of tighter losses.
Games, yeah.
What did you see out of this one?
No, it was a good matchup. Like Essendon, back and forth. Port Adelaide had a good run, and then Essendon started coming back in the end. And Stringer had a goal that kind of put him real close to being able to tie it up. And then at the very end, you had Andrew Phillips. I love a big man. Andrew Phillips had one from about 50, 55 out. And I know in his head, he would have gone, can I make the distance? I'm a bit older. My hamstrings don't work as well. Is this going to make it to the goal line? Unfortunately, did not make it to the goal line. There's about 30 seconds left. And then on the other side of it, it goes through for a behind. They needed 6. The kick out, and then he gives away the free kick. Game over. Done. Port Adelaide wins.
That's one of those, we've seen so many that come right down to the wire. It was almost just like a big exhale, kind of like letdown when it was like, oh, what are they going to do the last 30 seconds, free kick, and then they just get to wind the clock. It shows the importance of big men. So like Charlie Dixon had nothing to the last quarter, and then in 30 seconds just went bang, bang. And it's like, oh my God, like the influence that a big key forward can have on a game might not be their night, but their moment. It's another interesting one. And every week, I'm just happy for Kenny that he keeps ticking it away, and it shouldn't be really like a big focus. But now, as it does every single year since he's been there, the pressure will come off a little bit, and then they'll start going, you got to sign him. You got to re-sign him. And then it'll start to be the news cycle will start about, we got to re-sign Ken Hinkley. Do we re-sign him? How many years do we give him? It's the exact same cycle for Port Adelaide, I feel, every year. So just waiting for that to happen. Do we sign Ken Hinkley? How many years? Sign
him for 20.
Keep an eye out.
Sign him for 20.
But that's what they need. Imagine if it's like you give him another 1 year and then you do it next year. Yeah. It's like, I don't know how
the team and himself out. And it does affect the team.
I don't know how the admin thinks like, oh yeah, he'll perform well. Just, not knowing if he's got like money coming in the door, can look after his family.
Because if your coach is on the chopping block, not only is your coach on the chopping block, all of his assistants, everyone else within the clubs usually run the same like contract terms. So it just could be you look at us, like whenever Bucks left, we had to get a whole new group of people in, and it's a huge change. It's a big change. So it is stressful to think that like, I don't know if this new group is going to back me in, if this new group thinks I'm a good player, if you have to, make impressions all over again. Like it can trickle down to the team. It can.
Yeah. And it can go all the way through to selection. Like if you're like, all right, I need to do well next year. Like I need to do well. Who can we get in just to top it up, just to take us a little, like you start to think, short term, because everything's short term. Your contract's short term, coaches are short term. They start going, well, we can probably get a win if we do this. It's probably not best for like long-term growth, but let's do this. Yeah, so I don't know. And they've been doing that for years. So they haven't been helping themselves. Because if, 5 years ago, they knew that he was going to be here in 5 years regardless, you just sign him on a big 5-year and
less stress for everyone.
And you forget all about it.
All right, we'll move into the North Melbourne versus Saints. What a ripper of a game.
I don't even know what you say about this. So North didn't kick a goal to halftime. It was
rough.
And they were no goals, 6 points.
Hold on, Braden. They're playing at Marvel, though. Marvel's a fast ground. People score lots of goals there, don't they?
The roof was closed. So there's not a lot of excuses, mate. I'll say, I think at one point it was 0-6-6 to 1-9-15.
I mean,
quick math. I was sweating.
At this point, do you just turn the TV off?
Yeah, bloody hell. My mate who's like a massive St. Kilda fan is like, why am I wasting my Sunday?
He's going, Better Homes and Gardens is on Channel 9. I might flick to that.
Oh my God, that's a stinker. They ended up, they got 34-64, but it wasn't, nothing really to take out of this game. Philippou was like pretty good. And they did something great that they were just, clearing out space for him. So he basically had the front half of the ground by himself to kind of run around.
Let the young kid cook.
Nick Rewalt-esque. Took a massive hanger.
Oh, I love a specky.
So yeah, it is good. They got a lot of like upside. And once they start getting all these injured players back, dangerous team come the second half of the year, the Saints.
Who comes out of the team, I guess, whenever these people come back?
Yes. Well,
that'll be a big question.
We'll have to wait.
Or Rossi. Well, Rossi might have to just...
As they always say, good problem to have.
Good problem to have.
Now let's jump into the game that everyone's been waiting for, the last game of the round, Collingwood v the Sydney Swans. Now there's so much to talk about coming out of this game, starting with the return of big Mason Cox. Now he came back, I don't know if you know, he had a spleen injury, bleeding internally, death's door, knocking at it. Now he came back. What was the lead up to this week's game for you?
Yeah, it was unique. Like I always knew there was a chance I was going to play. It wasn't 100%. The biggest thing was I needed to get a tick of approval from the spleen doctor, the specialist, and
the spleen man,
Mr. Spleen Man.
He works in an alleyway down behind Coles, and he sells them.
Well, essentially, early in the week, I go in there, and I'm a bit nervous because it's like 6 weeks since the op, and like 6 weeks is kind of like bang, you can start contact, right? And it's like usually. You would think ideally it's like contact for a few weeks and you roll into like games and kind of like that, you know, it's like,
no time for that.
Zero big man Mason. You're in this week. Let's go. So essentially right away, I go into his office, ticks me off. He goes, yep, cool. Good to get a start contact. And I was like, now, whenever you say contact, I have to make this clear, sir. Does that mean I can play games? And he was like, I'm okay with it. I was like, cool, tick. Awesome. Telling the club right away, tell our club doctor, go into training, get through the training session. And I'm good. And I'm like, smashed a few times, like, you know, a bit of ruck stuff here and there. And I'm like, okay, body feels good. Yes, I'm a little bit out of shape comparatively to where I was 6 weeks ago because I haven't been able to do anything because of this whole injury. But we're good to go, right? And a lot of people think like, oh, man, do you have this like really, you know, intricate, like, you know, personal conversation with the coach about whether you're going to play or not, you know? Craig goes, you good? Yeah, good. He goes, all right, cool. That was it. We'd had the conversation for 5 weeks essentially. Yeah. So whenever it came to the week of, it was kind of like, if you can get through this and you feel okay, and as long as the strength conditioning coaches are okay with you playing, we're going to play you. So that was kind of the conversation behind it. It wasn't like this massive like ordeal that people needed to make behind it. You know, it was like, hey, do you feel good? Yes, I feel good. All right, cool. We're going to play you.
Was it good for you to hear him just say it at the press conference? So he had a press conference and he was asked, is Mason going to play? And he said, yeah, we'll play him. Like, is that good to like, then you don't have to, there's no strategic like selection. You're not waiting the last second. You're not telling people all week because you already know up front. Does that take a bit of like weight off your shoulders for the situation?
I mean, people still ask me every single day, I feel like.
But at least
like,
you can say yes,
once it's out, yeah, you can at least say like, yep, I'm playing. And then other questions come. But yeah, I think it's good. It's good to kind of have that feeling of like, all right, cool. Like, it's sorted. You know, we move on to the game. Like, I don't need to worry about whether or not it's a yes or a no or anything like that. It's like, I am playing on Sunday, and that is a fact now. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of like a release of pressure maybe whenever you actually hear that and you're like, all right, sweet, let's get into the next thing. Like this whole 6 weeks of maybe not. How do I feel? How do I not feel? Is it still bleeding? All this kind of stuff. That now is behind you, and now you're moving on to the future.
Now the game comes around. What's the feeling? Are you nervous? Do you get out there? You played surprising amount of game time and stuff. You didn't seem, you know, unfit or slow or sluggish.
I was nervous for the game. So I hadn't played a game since Port Adelaide, and I didn't really know what to expect. So like going into it, I was a bit like, okay, I might be totally exhausted after 2 or 3 minutes, or I might be good the rest of the game. And that kind of is what happened. Like I got out there, a few contests and stuff. You kind of get into the game, you kind of feel good, and I didn't really feel physically, you know, like I wasn't up for the challenge. Like it was actually, I felt pretty normal, which is a shout out to our strength performance and all that. But yeah, it was pretty good. Like I didn't feel like I was set that far behind after not doing anything for 6 weeks. I went out there and, you know, you're puffed quite a bit, don't get me wrong, but like that's something that just happens in every AFL game. But there wasn't any moments, like they really were able to manipulate my time on ground and what position I was playing, whether it be forward or ruck, and move me around, and that was beneficial for me and being able to recover during the game, which was good. So, yeah, they looked after me, which is something I appreciate. So, shout out to the high performance Jared Waite for doing that. But I felt pretty good over the weekend. So, it was a good signs going forward.
I think every Collingwood fan in the stands and at home watching along knows when you're going to have a good game straight away. If you take a mark within the first minute of you being out there or whatever, oh, it's on. It's on for young and old. And you took a couple of clunks early days, got a couple of handballs out from ground balls, got a free kick for like chopping the arms, which is always
I was
super
confused.
rare.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that one coming.
Try not
I was
to
like, looked at him. I was like, sorry, what? It's been so long.
about to abuse the umpire, and you're like, wait, it's for me.
Oh, it's actually for me. Oh, wow.
But you did go forward, and it's always good when you go forward because you're always looking dangerous up there. You know, got to a few contests, got one, had a set shot.
Yes,
what
I knew it should
happened?
come up. Yeah, shanked it right. It was weird because like in the game, in the moment, I was sitting there, I was like, all right, sick, great kick from Guinea, bang, out on the lead. Big fella does not lead very often, so great kick, straight in front, 30 out. Couldn't be the more normal, easiest shot you could possibly find, right?
Right in the wheelhouse. That's
Right
not it.
there.
That's not in your unnamed triangle of, you know.
The Bermuda Triangle on the corner. I'm not going to tell you where that's at. But yeah, did miss it. It was interesting, though, because it was like they were trying to sort out who was on the mark or what was going on with like 4 seconds before I had to kick. So it was just kind of like weird confusion. I was kind of like, I don't know what the umpire is doing here, but I'm just going to go and have a kick. And yeah, it's the wind was blowy. I'm just going to give that as an excuse now. It was a shit kick. So unfortunately, I don't make every single shot, Braden. So there's going to be a few misses throughout the game. But luckily, that's not the one that broke the camel's back, and we still won the game. And that wasn't as much of a pressure situation as it could have been.
I just wanted it for that celebration. Just get right up in the Swans boys' faces.
Oh, yeah.
I think probably Bo McCreary owes you a coffee. I think it was dropping into the hole in front of you, and you had a nice little chesty.
Filthy.
You had a nice little chest mark.
I was so pissed. There's 2 or 3 on the weekend, and we just had like a shank kick, or someone jumps in front of me, or whatever it was, and I was like, oh yeah, he hit flying out of nowhere. I didn't see him, but yeah, he dropped the chesty. Yeah, that's all right though.
Plenty came out of this game. The biggest talking point was Nick Daicos going into the game, and then it kicked off straight away. So Sydney brought in Ryan Clark to tag Nick Daicos, the Nick Daicos tag specialist that teams are going to have to start implementing to try and shut down this kid. Anyway, so Ryan Clark kicks the first goal while tagging Nick Daicos, and the Sydney boys just go straight to Nick and just start, you know,
like rubbing his head and shoving him and everything else. And you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't. Who comes out of nowhere? Brodie Mihocek says, "Oh, it's my time to shine, baby."
he's like a wild Pokemon when you're walking through the long grass, and it just, you know, a wild Braden Maynard appears, and he just starts throwing everyone around. Now, I was like looking around to see, you always look into these and see who's where and who's fighting who and stuff. And then Mason Cox late on the scene. Where were you?
Usually first on the scene.
Yeah, where were you? What was happening?
I was on the bench. I didn't actually see it happen. I got subbed into the game, and all of a sudden, as I'm like going into the center bounce, I see a scuffle to my left. I'm like, oh, I'll have a little jog over to see what's going on. I didn't know exactly what had happened though. That he was tagging him, and he kicked the first goal, and they got into him because I was like going into the middle. I wasn't paying attention to what was happening in the back line. And I will say this though, Nick got shoved around by them, or Papley it was, and then Josh, first person, gets right into Paps, and I was like, I love this little brother love, you know. It's like backing up the younger brother, and then Brodie goes steamrolling from out of screen into full fight mode, which was awesome. But yeah, it was interesting. Him getting tagged, we all kind of knew it was coming, and then I think a little bit on, Nick Daicos sets up a goal to Will Hoskin-Elliott. I want to say, oh, you best believe. You best believe Ryan Clark got an earful from the rest of the fellas on our side just right after it.
Which was an interesting thing. All Collingwood boys got around Nick when, you know, they were giving him shit. Less Sydney guys got around Ryan Clark when he was getting, you know.
I don't think it was as big of a thing because it was like so obvious the Nick Daicos tag, right? And then, like, it was probably a target that Sydney had was to get into his head and, like, put a body into him. Because every center bounce, they were getting into him. And whenever I think that happened on the reverse, I don't think it was really Sydney was, like, aware of it, you know? Like, Sydney wasn't probably paying attention to it as much as the Nick Daicos kind of, like, stigma to it. So, I don't know. I don't think it was anything against Sydney, but I did notice that. It was very interesting to see how many players show up to the fight comparatively to each team.
And it was funny that just the look on your face when you rolled up to the scene of the first scuffle, and you're like, who am I fighting here? Like,
so
you're looking
confused.
around, you're like, who's the fight with? You just grab a guy and you're like, no, not you. Like, walking around.
What happens is the big dudes always grab the other big dude. So it's like hockey, you know? Like, you ever seen like the goalies of ice hockey? It's like whenever the goalies go, they fight each other. They don't fight anyone else on the ground. 2 big men, let's go at each other. So who was the one person there? We didn't even fight. Buddy Franklin was there. I was like, buddy, we're good. We're good, man. Just back off. I don't really want to shove you around because you're going to kill me.
Walk up and shake his hand. What What an honor, Mr. Bud. It's nice to meet you. But, you know, the interesting thing was Nick Daicos post-game saying, we actually love the tag. We love the tag because you could see it happening. He's suck into a contest, which would leave a halfback free. Ryan Clark kind of caught in two minds, doesn't push up, doesn't fall back. And, you know, the likes of like Quaynor and Noble and stuff get a bit more free run coming off halfback. So it is one of those ones that, you know, teams are going to have to look at going forward of, do we do a full hard tag on him? Do we, you know, do a team tag on him, or do we just let him roam and we play our game and try to just outplay him? But I think the best part is that I feel like Collingwood has been waiting for this opportunity just to bait teams into like a full hard tag and see how it goes, because you could tell that you'd planned for it. And, you know, I reckon it brought up even more questions than it answered.
Yeah.
Like with this hard tag situation.
It didn't give answers over the weekend, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So, you know, he still got 25 touches, which is, you know, down on his 45 touches.
Yeah.
But did it lead to team success? No. Ended up getting beaten by just a tad under 5 goals. So
I'm going to say this about Nick, though, before we move on to the next segment or the next part of this. Nick, I've never seen a player who loves football as much as Nick does. Like, after games, he is like, not just like, oh man, that was a great win. He is like, man, that was awesome. Like, oh my gosh, that was so good. He's like so hyped. And I think like his passion for the game is going to lead him to be one of the best that ever plays.
Yeah.
And it's not like some people, you know, they're like, oh, it's exciting. It's a great game. It was fun. You know, like he is genuinely like fully invested every single moment. And even after the game, he just talks to me, like, oh, how good was that win? Oh, so cool. So awesome. Like he just genuinely loves what he does. No joke whatsoever. Like I see the man, I'm like, man, I enjoy what I do. Don't get me wrong, but like he enjoys it to another level.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see.
Yeah. And it's, you know, there's so like he's had to overcome like a lot of obstacles for like how young he is. But the scary part is for everyone is that he's still probably like 8 years off his footballing peak. It's like, where's the ceiling for this? It's nuts. But yeah, we all get to just sit along and watch the ride. Now, something negative that did come out of the game, and it has been spoken on a little bit to this point, but I was watching along and fans started booing Lance Franklin. Now, it was super confusing. We talked about the Jason Horne-Francis incident last week, where it's, you know, it's not even North fans booing him. Like, it didn't make sense, that incident. Well, this was kind of in the same vein. It was like, why are you booing him? It's not like he's at his peak of his powers and he's like tearing the team apart. He's got 7 and you're like, just piss off. All right. This is literally a legend of the game. And one of his last games at the MCG, in a moment that you should really be praising him and celebrating him for what he's given to the game.
You're like admiring all the stuff he's been able to do throughout his career. Like I look at him, I'm like, man, this guy will go down in infamy in AFL folklore, right? And I was on the same ground as him whenever he was playing. It would be a cool story I'll be able to tell people for the rest of my life. And I don't get it. And it kind of reminds me of whenever Buck said, you know, shame on anyone who booed a champion whenever Anzac Day and Pendles goes up to the mic. And it's the same, man. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand whenever people do this to players. Like, there's no reason for you to be booing Buddy Franklin. Like, you should be cheering that man for what he's been able to put on throughout his career, how much like joy, excitement, and everything else he's provided for the AFL for such a long time. And he's on one of his last years. I don't know how long he's going to play, but like you have to enjoy the moments he's out there because you just never know when it might be the last time you see someone playing. It's the same as whenever you see like LeBron James playing in the US and you see people go to the footy or go to the basketball to watch him play because they know he might do something freakishly and they want to be part of that history. You know, it's like Buddy has been that for us in the AFL for a long, long time. And you should be excited to see him play. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It frustrates the hell out of me. It drives me insane. It really does.
It's super frustrating. Yeah, so I'm off it. Don't boo at all.
Yep. I agree. Well, we'll move on to some positive stuff. Checkers. Kicks the bag. Brodie Mihocek finally gets 5 goals. It has been a long, long road, a long time coming, old Checkers.
Now, I was surprised by this. I was like, surely he's kicked 5. But no, it's a big deal that he's kicked 5. But apparently it's It's a thing?
It's a thing at the club. I've talked to him for a long time, and he's always gone, I get 4, the 5th one just never comes. The 5th one just never comes. He's literally 12 times he's kicked 4 in a game, and he's been literally, there's only one person that's kicked 4 in a game more times than checkers without kicking 5, right? Alan Elliott. I don't even know. Doesn't matter. Brody Mihocek was number 2 on that list of people who have kicked 4 without being able to kick 5 goals in a game. And he's a man who's been overlooked in 7 drafts. He's one of the just best players, I think, one of the best role players, especially too, for anyone out there. If you want to see someone who's a role player, look at Brodie Mihocek and what he does for this team. He doesn't get a lot of probably love and attention from the media, but that man shows up and shows out every single week. And yeah, he kicked 5, and it was like awesome. It was like the last 15 seconds he got his 5th, and I just lost it. I was like, let's go.
Man,
so hyped.
It was needed. He popped up every single time it was necessary, because Sydney had a real run on coming out of the second, and it was
they were up at halftime.
So yeah, it was, there's a bit of stressing going on, but Checkers just, calm the nerves, as he often does, pops up at the right time, and he takes a beating. And I don't know how he just gets up. The last week where he wrapped around the point post, and then he just gets up and dusts it.
Tassie battler.
It's check on that.
Bring him tough down there in Tassie.
Check on that point post. There's one long bomb in, which he could probably shepherd on the line.
Nah.
But he pulls out this Ronaldo-esque bicycle kick over his head, and it's where'd that come from? What are you doing?
I was blown away. I was out there, and I was like, did he just... I thought he actually punched it through. I thought the defender actually punched it through. And I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, oh, shit. He actually bicycle kicked that thing through.
It was nuts.
It was insane. It wasn't just a drop punt either. It was a snap, which is curving from Jordan to Goey. So not only that, he's got to judge the angle that it's coming in, and then somehow gets a boot to it while holding off another player and kicks it through the. It's a phenomenal goal. It's got to be goal of the year. So far. I mean, from a pure how hard that is, and you would never practice that ever in training, and you end up making it work. To me, that's goal of the year for me. I know people will have their own comments on it, but that bicycle kick was wild.
It was nuts.
Scenes, absolute scenes at the MCG.
It was nuts.
People lost it too. The whole crowd was going crazy.
Because you didn't expect it. I was he'll just shepherd it through. He was on Nick Blakey, and it's Nick Blakey. He's probably got, Checker's probably got a few dozen kegs on him.
Kegs on him, I'd say.
And I was like, he'll shepherd it through. And then he kept moving closer and closer towards the ball's path. And I was like, what's he going to do here?
Just never know.
I was like, oh, maybe the mark. But nah, bicycle over his head. I didn't know that he was, so agile. The big rig, the big stump.
Capable of anything, Jaggers.
So yeah, that was awesome to see. The big 5 goals. I reckon if you kick 5, there's got to be a limit on it, but you kick, say, 5 or whatever, they give you a footy. Do they give you a footy for just if you take 5 wickets in cricket, you go off, you get the cricket ball, you get to hold it up, all of that stuff. So in footy, they should give you one of the footies and go you get to sign it and put it at home in a case and go that was the time that I kicked 5 on the G.
We do get a game ball that we give out as a team. So if you're the best player on the day, you get a game ball signed by all the players that played that day.
That's cool.
So I've got a feeling Brody Mihocek's going to probably get it this week.
Have you got one?
I do. I've only got one.
Queen's birthday?
Nope.
Oh.
Didn't get it that day.
That's bullshit. Well, I guess you got a trophy. So
True. I think Nathan Murphy or something got it. I've got a few 2 votes rather than second.
Oh.
There's one, the Indigenous ball. They had the painting on the Indigenous ball, and I really, really, really wanted that one because it was sick. I missed it by a few votes to Nathan Murphy. # never forget.
Rough. Can I ask what your game was?
2018 prelim.
Oh, yeah, fuck.
Yeah. You remember that one? Remember that?
The game that'll live on in infamy. Before we wrap it up,
let's do one shining moment.
We can't.
One shining moment.
We can't move forward without recognizing the most important people in our game.
That's the umpires, Brayden. Oh, gotta love them. Gotta love them. A massive shout out to Simon Meredith, umpired 450th game this weekend.
That's a lot of games.
That is a lot of games. There's only Matt Stevick, who's at 459, I think, and Brett Roseberry, that's at 491, so he's almost on 500. And shout out to them because it's a massive, massive accomplishment. Absolutely love the umpires. I've got nothing negative to say about them. They're just such lovely people. I actually do really get along with them. I know people probably think players hate umpires. They're actually the nicest people in the world.
I didn't even see this was added in here. Why did you put this in here? Is this, we're just giving AFL double love? You gave them love off the top, now you're giving them love off the end. Is this something to do with the AFL sending out the you can't talk negative about umpires or?
Unfortunately, Brendan, that's it. That's all the time we have today. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening in to the podcast. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. 10K on Instagram, 30K on TikTok. Massive thank you to everyone who's done a follow. And like I said, we'll have a big giveaway later this week, so have a look out for that. But I just want to say massive thank you for tuning in. We love umpires. Brendan, anything to close out?
You don't get away with that.
All right. See you later, everyone. Have a great week.